The day you agree to testify, everything you own stops being yours. Your name, your history, your neighborhood, your morning routine, the restaurant where everyone knows your order, the face your children see when they look at you, all of it. Yours until the moment you sign the paperwork, and then it belongs to the United States Marshal Service, who will take it apart piece by piece and hand you back something completely different. This is your life in the Witness Protection Program, and the price of your silence is higher than anyone tells you before you agree to pay it. Let's go back to where it starts, because nobody enters WITSEC, the Witness Security Program, from a position of comfort. You're here because you saw something, or did something, or knew something that the federal government needs you to testify about in open court. And the people you're testifying against are the kind of people who make problems disappear permanently. WITSEC was created in 1971, authorized by the Organized Crime Control Act of 1970. Gerald Schur, then an attorney with the U.S. Department of Justice, built it from the ground up after watching mob witnesses get murdered before they could reach the stand. The entire program exists for one reason: to make testifying survivable. Since 1971, the U.S. Marshals Service has protected more than 19,000 witnesses and their family members. The official record is unbroken. According to the U.S. Marshals Service, no witness who has followed the program's rules has ever been harmed or killed while under active WITSEC protection. That's an extraordinary statistic. It's also the cleanest part of this story. Everything else is considerably messier. Here's what actually happens on the day you enter. You don't pack. Or rather, you pack almost nothing, because taking familiar objects creates risk. Your old phone stays behind, your car stays behind, your social media accounts are abandoned. Any email address connected to your real name is gone. If you have a storage unit, a gym membership, a library card, all of it stays. You're not moving, you're disappearing. There's a difference. The marshals give you a new name. According to Gerald Schur's own book, WITSEC, inside the Federal Witness Protection Program, most witnesses are advised to keep their first name, or at least their first initial, because after decades of answering to something, the instinct to respond to your own name is nearly impossible to fully suppress. You'll slip up. It's not a question of if, it's a question of whether someone dangerous is close enough to hear it. So they give you something close enough to feel natural and different enough to not show up in the right search results. You get a new birth certificate, a new social security number, a new driver's license. The documents are real, processed through the court system with records sealed. You're not carrying fakes. You're carrying you, a version of you that, on paper, was born somewhere you've never been, grew up in a city you've never visited, and has no connection whatsoever to the person who just walked through the Marshal Service door. Then they hand you approximately $60,000 on average, according to program records. That sounds like a lot. It's less than a year's living expenses in most American cities, and it's supposed to cover your transition until you can support yourself legally. They'll help you find housing, they'll help place your kids in schools, they'll help you get job training. What they won't do is turn the money into a salary. The clock starts ticking the moment you arrive. Now here's the part that doesn't fit on any official document. You've moved to a city you didn't choose. The marshals deliberately don't let you pick your location from a list of preferences, because Gerald Schur knew from early program experience that wherever a witness wanted to go, they probably had some connection there from their old life. That connection is a thread. Someone pulls it, and everything unravels. So the city you end up in is the city they decide is safest. You might love it. You might hate it. You don't get a vote. Your family, nuclear family only, comes with you. Your children leave their schools, their friends, their teammates. Your spouse leaves their job, their colleagues, their support network. If your mother is sick back home, you don't go. If your brother gets married, you don't attend. If someone dies, the funeral happens without you. Contact with anyone from your previous life runs through secure Marshal Service channels only. You can send letters, but you can't keep the replies after you've read them. The marshals take them. You can make phone calls on secure lines, but you don't reveal your location, your new name, or any detail of your current life that could compromise your cover. You've done nothing wrong, and your punishment is total isolation from everyone you've ever known. This is the part of the program that the official statistics don't capture: the psychological weight of a life suspended in permanent performance. Every new neighbor you meet, you're playing a character. Every coworker who asks where you grew up, you give them the scripted answer. Every friend you make carries the risk of becoming someone who might one day accidentally or deliberately reveal something you can't take back. Intimacy becomes dangerous. Not because the people are bad, because the closer they get, the more they can see. And what they'll eventually see, if you let them close enough, is that something about you doesn't quite add up. Researchers who have studied identity suppression, the sustained effort of concealing core aspects of who you are, describe it as a form of chronic stress. It drains cognitive resources continuously in the background. The way a phone app running constantly drains a battery, you're always calculating, always managing, always one unexpected question away from a moment that requires you to think fast. And you can't tell anyone why. You can't explain to your new boss why you seem distracted. You can't explain to your new friends why you flinch at certain questions. You can't explain to your kid's teacher why their records look thin, and why their grandmother never calls, and why the family doesn't have any photographs from before 3 years ago. You absorb everyone's confusion and suspicion with a smile and a plausible answer and move on to the next conversation. Then there's the specific category of person who made up roughly 95% of all WITSEC participants, according to program founder Gerald Schur himself. People who were criminals in their own right, not bystanders who happened to witness a crime. Active participants in the criminal enterprise who are now cooperating with the government in exchange for reduced sentences, dropped charges, or simply survival. These people don't enter the program as victims. They enter as players who switched sides, and the psychological architecture of their old life, the loyalties, the code, the identity that came with belonging to something powerful and dangerous, doesn't disappear because they signed new paperwork. This is where the story of Henry Hill becomes impossible to ignore. Hill was an associate of New York's Lucchese crime family. His life in organized crime, from petty theft as a teenager in Brooklyn to running drugs and planning heists as an adult, was the material Martin Scorsese turned into the 1990 film Goodfellas. Hill was arrested on drug trafficking charges in 1980. Facing serious prison time, he agreed to become an FBI informant. His testimony led to 50 arrests, and then he and his wife Karen, and their 2 children, entered WITSEC, relocating under assumed names. They moved 10 times: Omaha, Nebraska, Independence, Kentucky, Redmond, Washington. Each time, Hill's inability to leave his old self behind forced another relocation. He used drugs. He sold drugs. According to reporting at the time, he once revealed his real identity to guests at his own backyard barbecue while intoxicated. The marshals moved him again. He kept going. In 1987, he was arrested in Seattle for cocaine trafficking. That was the final violation. The marshals expelled Hill and his family from the program. Ray Liotta, who played Hill in Goodfellas, captured the psychological core of the problem in one of the film's most famous scenes. Hill, newly relocated, describes his new life in a flat, dead voice. He can't get decent food. He has to wait in line like everyone else. He's, in his own words, an average nobody. The money, the protection, the new identity, none of it compensated for the loss of status, belonging, and identity that the old life provided. Hill wasn't just addicted to drugs. He was addicted to being Henry Hill, and WITSEC asked him to stop. He couldn't. He died in Los Angeles in 2012 at the age of 69, having spent his final decades as a minor celebrity trading on the very story his witness protection was supposed to bury. He appeared on The Howard Stern Show. He sold paintings on eBay. He opened a restaurant called Wise Guys in New Haven, Connecticut, and sold his own line of tomato sauce under his real name. He was inducted into the Museum of the American Gangster in New York City. The mob never killed him. The life he couldn't leave behind simply outlasted the protection designed to give him a new one. But Henry Hill is one data point. The 83% of WITSEC participants who don't reoffend are living quietly somewhere, in cities you've been to, in neighborhoods you've driven through. with names you'd never recognize and histories that don't hold up past a certain point. They're at parent-teacher conferences, they're at the grocery store on Saturday mornings, they're coaching youth soccer and attending neighborhood barbecues and building friendships that are real and warm and built entirely on a foundation that doesn't exist. And most of them, according to what little testimony has emerged from program participants who've spoken publicly, find a way to make peace with it. Not easily, not quickly. The first year is described consistently as the hardest. The combination of grief for the lost life, fear of the new environment, and the exhausting performance of being someone you're not. But humans are extraordinarily adaptable. Given time, the new name starts to feel like a name. The new city starts to feel like home. The new neighbors start to feel like community. The character becomes the person. Not because the old person disappears, but because identity is more flexible than most people ever discover, usually because they never have to. There's one documented case in program history of 2 WITSEC participants being identified in their new lives. Not by enemies, not by law enforcement, but by each other. An audit published in 2005 revealed that 2 people who had known each other before entering the program encountered each other at a convenience store. One of them was relocated, the other stayed. They had both apparently built new lives in the same city, in the same neighborhood, and had been living in ordinary proximity for an unknown period of time before the moment their eyes met across a checkout counter, and both of them understood simultaneously what they were seeing. One of them reported it. One of them didn't have to. That moment, 2 people who can never acknowledge knowing each other, standing in a fluorescent-lit store, both performing the same lie, is maybe the most complete image of what WITSEC actually looks like from the inside. Not the car chases, not the dramatic courtroom testimony, just 2 people who know too much, looking at each other and saying nothing. The program costs the U.S. government approximately $10 million per year to operate. Against the cost of prosecuting organized crime networks, it's a bargain. The conviction rate in trials where WITSEC participants testify runs at approximately 89%. The program works, by the government's own metrics, extraordinarily well. What it costs the people inside it is measured in something the government doesn't track. Every graduation missed. Every holiday spent in a city that still feels temporary, 7 years in. Every time a child asks why grandma never visits, and you give the answer you've practiced and watch their face process the answer, and know they'll ask again next year. Every morning, you wake up as someone else and make the quiet, invisible decision to keep going. The price of silence isn't paid once, at the moment you agree to testify. It's paid every single day after that, in a currency that has no name and no official exchange rate. And no witness protection program in the world has ever figured out how to cover it. If you want to understand the other side of this equation, what happens to the people whose testimony sends them into WITSEC in the first place, and how organized crime networks hunt for witnesses who've disappeared, that video is linked right here. And if this kind of storytelling, the kind that gets inside the realities most people never see, is what you're here for, subscribe. Drop a comment with the one thing from this video you'll still be thinking about tomorrow. For me, it's the convenience store. It'll always be the convenience store.